Well, before I was born, they were the best team in English football for a period of about 5 years. Maybe not even that. But
I thought
yeah,
you were going to try and claim the FA Cup as the best team in football.
What, 2008? It's a very good team. Probably the first time we won the FA Cup, we might have been the best team, which is the late 40s, early 50s. Oh, no, late 30s, sorry. Well, less said about the late 30s, the better.
It'd be nice to know more about the players' personalities beyond like a one-word answer. Whether those players are going to fit in with club culture. Things that I think would genuinely be things that teams do look at when it comes to recruitment of players. I think what you really need to do to manage in Turkey properly and get the most out of it would be to build a super team out of both Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. Merge them together. They'll love that.
Galabache. Yeah, that'll do.
Galabache. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FM Show Pod. You're hearing an interesting voice in your ears, not usually what you'd be expecting. Usually the dulcet tones of Tony Jameson would be in your ear holes right now. But today, you're stuck with me and a very special guest that you're used to hearing the voice of, perhaps even slightly more often, the indomitable, the eponymous Sai Maggio. How's it going tonight, Sai? How are you feeling,
Good.
friend?
Well, my voice might not sound normal because I'm a bit bunged up with flu or colds. So, you know, I'm just we've lost Tony to his holiday. We've lost Aaron to his honeymoon. So we're holding down the fort this week. But I think we've got a good episode lined up.
Yeah,
hopefully
we've got a good topic planned. Even if we are slowly dropping like flies, the health bar above us is hovering dangerously above the red zone right about now.
That's it, yeah. I've got was it with the fatigue, the little heart? They actually got rid of the fatigue numbers a few years ago, didn't they?
Bring them back.
I think my skin. You got the SAS skin as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
We have the percentages then, don't we?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
You added it back. Yeah. I mean, for me, like the coloured heart bars aren't very useful as a colourblind person. So, yeah, bring back the percentages.
You're just trying to like squint in and see how much the heart is full up.
Yeah, that's it. Or like, I mean, I could tell, but people like colorblind's a weird thing. People say, "Oh, could you like?" They'll hold up an apple and be like, "What color is?" Actually, an apple is a bad example because that could be a color.
The green and red apple. Sorry.
Like this. Like for audio listeners, I'm holding up a shake can. You know, like a sneak shake can or drink shake can, and it's got a red lid. A shaker, that's the word I'm looking for. A shaker. I told you I'd be slow today. A shaker. It's got a red lid, and I can see that that's clearly red. But people are like, oh, every time someone says your colour, they're like, what colour is this? What colour is this? But really, it's only like shades. Things like LEDs can throw you off. Or like the colours on the shading on attributes. I can see the difference, but it's just like that fraction of a second longer it takes me to look at it. That's just annoying, so I change them.
I was going to say, do you find it easier to use custom thresholds and sort of custom colours for your attributes as well, just so it's more distinguishable? Because, I mean, I do the same thing as someone who, as far as I know, doesn't have colour blindness, but I just find that it's easier to have, because the game, it's like, hey, would you like green or slightly more green? Whereas
that's it, yeah.
For me, it needs to have, people always come into chat and are like, this is disgusting, what are you doing? But for me, it's much easier to see like red, green, yellow, and then blue at the very top, because then I could be scrolling through pages and just see little clumps of blue and go, hey, that guy's got something.
It's quick, right? Like, Zealand raided me the other day, and all his viewers came in and like, what are you doing with the colours? What's with these colours? I can't work anything out. I can't work out if this player's good. And I'm like, well, I can, because, you know, I can. You see blue, you know it's good. You see red, you know it's bad. And you see, I don't remember what colour I have in between yellow, I think, and like maybe another red colour, or grey might even be the bottom colour. It's like, I see yellow, I know they're okay. And that's it. Or the red and the green are really opposite. So it's like much more pronounced, the contrast. So yeah, that's
it's about accessibility, isn't it? Really, like the fact that the game even provides these options is like a very good thing, which actually strangely and segues perfectly into our discussion topic for tonight, which is obviously feature requests from the community. Now, this is one area of the game, God, it was seamless there, which it already has that sort of stuff, but maybe there's a few other things that perhaps could go into the accessibility settings that people may want to see in FM26. So, Sai, I believe you put out a message in the Discord and, of course, on previous videos, and we're going to be discussing some things that you guys might want to see in FM26 tonight. So have you got a topic for us to start with?
I have. Actually, just on the colorblind one. So a lot of some studios get it wrong. They actually do the reverse. I remember one game, instead of making it so that it fixed the colorblind, it made it so that it replicated what it would look like if you were colorblind. I think it was like one of the battlefields or something.
Balanced it as equity. They balanced it out so they made everybody colorblind.
yeah. Well, only if you turned the colorblind settings on. So colorblind setting made you colorblind. So the weird one with Football Manager, and I reported, I think it might be fixed now, but I reported to them. But basically you get a slide. So Football Manager do quite a good thing, but you get a slider, right? And as you push the slider up, it will sort of change the hue of the whole screen. But the problem is it changes the color of the faces as well. So anyone with a face is now blue. And it's like, well, that doesn't really help, because when I see a real human being, I don't see them with a blue face. I'm not looking at the Smurfs.
I was going to say, you must have loved the Smurfs. Blue Man Group, everyone's favourite band.
Yeah, so it's like, you put your red-green colorblind up to full max, it makes everyone blue, and it's really weird. It's like, no one sees it like that.
I wonder if perhaps they've misunderstood, because isn't there like different forms of colorblindness that have different sort of difficulties distinguishing certain hues?
Yes. Deuteranopia, protanopia, and tritanopia. There you go. And technically none of them are colorblindness, because colorblind would be black and white. And I think they're called like color deficiency or something. But anyway, we're getting
off torches.
Would you like the first suggestion?
I'd love it, unless you've got any more lectures on various anatomy, because I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately. Here we go. Blaze in the Discord says, I would like the game to punish managers for playing a player in any role and it working because the tactic is too good. Now, see, I'm already going to disagree with that one. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I think this is one of these areas where it sucks when the hosts agree with each other, but I'll be honest with you, I'm very much team you here, but I want to hear your reasoning before I get to mine. Okay.
Professional footballers are very good at football. You could probably put Erling Haaland at centre-back and he'd be capable, right? Like, he can pass the ball, he can make a tackle. Like, he's worlds above what I would be able to do at centre-back, even though he's not a centre-back. So he, as functionally as a footballer, like, he's very, very good. But to be honest, he has the build for a centre-back as well. Like, he wouldn't be the best centre-back in the world, but he would be perfectly functional. So I think, like, that's part of my reason. The other is, like, you know, a lot of players don't really, like, you don't assign a role in real life to a player. Like, you ask them to play a certain way. You might give them instructions, but you don't say, hey, today I'd like you to be a trequartista. Like, you're like, no, I'd like you to do these things. And that's what we as, like, the public or the media might assign to him as a trequartista. But in the manager's dressing room, I don't know, maybe we'll find out. Maybe we need to speak to a coach or something, and they're going to say, yes, Bruno Fernandes, today you're going to be a... Bruno Fernandes, I'll say his name right. Today you're going to be a trequartista, tomorrow you're going to be an enganche or whatever. I don't know, what do you think?
I agree. I do wonder, though, like, I mean, I think if you put Erling Haaland as any position on the pitch, including goalkeeper, at a lower level, he'd do a tasty job. I still think that perhaps he would be shown up, because I think people underestimate the amount of skill it takes to be specialised in those positions. But I think in FM, and I think something that was highlighted in that particular request and the way that it was phrased, and maybe this is just me nitpicking, is that the idea that you could put a player in any role in a tactic if the tactic's OP enough. And I suspect that perhaps leans more into the fact that the tactic's OP rather than them being punished. Because I've noticed that when you say you've got a guy who's like a CM and is a DLP type of player, but you want him to be a DM DLP. I had this literal experience this morning. Training them to play there is a little bit difficult. You've got to actually let them play in that role. And you know, when you put them in there and it's like, hey, they've got one grey star of familiarity with the role. And you think to yourself, oh God, they're going to be appalling in the matches. But you usually kind of just suffer through it and grit your teeth. I feel like the players do get punished a little bit for that, but perhaps it could be a little bit more severe. But I suppose maybe there's a sliding scale, because I don't know how it works under the hood. So maybe if you've got a guy who's a CM and you're training him a bit deeper, but it's largely the same strategy, then perhaps they're going to see a minor, like a maybe 5 to 10% decrease in their sort of functional CA in game. But maybe if you took a striker and tried to play him as a centre-back, not even if you had reasonable attributes for the role, perhaps you'd be more likely to see a more drastic difference. It's not something I've really investigated personally, but I think perhaps, yeah, it could be do with a little bit more punishing, just because it will make the game a little bit more difficult, and I'm kind of always in favour of that.
So they do struggle when they don't have familiarity, right? Well, like if it's a position, like I think the game does punish you. Like I'm curious what he wants to say. Like, you know, is it like the player's going to get annoyed at playing at another position, or
they do sometimes?
See, sometimes it doesn't make sense because I'll give you an example. Weston McKennie, the event. He left Juventus? Has he gone Leeds now? He's at Leeds. He's at Leeds. He's not a defensive midfielder in game at all. He has no familiarity at defensive midfielder. But his role at centre mid is ball winning midfielder or defensive midfielder. So why can he play at centre mid as a ball winning or defensive midfielder, but he can't play as a defensive mid at all, like positionally? It doesn't make any sense.
It's a weird one like that. It's like there's a level of versatility that you'd almost expect them to have. And you feel like at some point in his career, a manager might have just gone, hey, Weston, just a little bit deeper. Just a little bit deeper for 30 minutes.
5 centimetres
just
back.
Give him like the little bit of orange or something, just so that he's got a little bit of it. The worst one is the one where they can play left back, wing back, and left attacking mid. But don't you dare put them in the wide midfield role. They'll be like, sorry, what is this?
I wonder if do you know the wide midfield role and the options you have on the wide midfield role are a little bit different to what you get. Like, I feel like the wing back and the winger sort of do similar roles. The ones you get at wide midfield sort of feel more like a traditional, maybe, David Beckham winger style player. I wonder if that's...
Do you know what? You've actually won me over immediately there. I kind of exactly get what you mean. I'd never really looked at it that way, but I actually do see the logic for that, because I use a wide midfielder as a wide midfielder in my current tactic, and I'd never really bothered with those kind of roles because I usually just go straight for the advanced wide midfielders. But you're right, I think it perhaps leans itself to more technical roles out wide rather than pure pace, I am winger, I am inside forward type of thing. Whereas when they're a bit deeper, they're relied on to do a bit more covering back and more technical play, cutting inside from a deeper position. So I can sort of see the logic to it, actually.
I mean, there's no logic because you can select winger. I'm going to undo my own argument immediately. You can literally tell them to be a winger. Maybe that's it. Maybe the roles are like... Thing is, if you could put a position in a role, they'll have almost familiarity with most of the roles in that position, and generally that would make sense. But I feel like a role like that, like a wide playmaker, is very different to a winger, I guess.
Oh, 100%. Like it would almost be an entirely different skill set, because if you think as a winger, it's going to be all about the athleticism and the crossing ability and perhaps dribbling, whereas a wide playmaker is likely to be focusing more on his off the ball attributes, but as well as things like his passing and vision and those sort of the sort of high level mental attributes. It's a really interesting role. I've never really used the sort of advanced playmaker in those wide positions particularly. It's always been a central role for me.
I mean, the one I'm scared of is wide target man. Like, I've never used wide target man. I just feel like you've got a tool man. Why are you putting him out there?
What's he doing out there?
I know, yeah. Probably for Onana's goal kicks. I don't know if you've seen any of those when he kicks the ball out, kicks out of play. We are recording this the night after Man United lost to Grimsby in the Carabao Cup, which is glorious. As someone who grew up with everyone wanting to support Man United as, because they were the best team in football, and me supporting Portsmouth, who have never been the best team in football. I take that back. Well before I was born, they were the best team in English football for a period of about 5 years. Maybe not even that. But
I thought you were going to try and claim the FA Cup as the best team in football.
What, 2008? It's a very good team. Probably the first time we won the FA Cup, we might have been the best team, which is the late 40s, early 50s. Oh, no, late 30s, sorry. Well, less said about the late 30s, the better. There's a reason we held the FA Cup for 6 years consecutively. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to see Man United fans suffer a little, even if it might be they're still in the Premier League. It's not that bad. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. All right, so what are we saying to Blaze's suggestion? I think the game already does it. I don't know if... Do you think maybe players do get annoyed if they're playing in the wrong position? So
they do. I mean, I must admit, I used to see it more. It feels like in 24 and 23, the only time I've had a player complain about me playing in the wrong position is where I've deliberately put an outfield player in goal for the memes. That they will absolutely flip their lid over.
They don't like that.
Yeah. If they've got the right personality type. There's one guy I use all the time, this right-sided winger that I got from Belgium, who's like a mascot, and I just throw him in goal whenever I need someone to play there because it's funny. But I've done it to players that have got like perfectionist personality types, and they will not have it.
Oh.
They will get proper pissy.
The one so sometimes it tells me that they're unhappy with the role and position they're playing, but it's the one that they have that I am playing them, and I'm like, what?
It's even better when it's a role they've played for 2 years.
And I don't know if it's because like they're on the wrong side of the pitch. I feel like there's a bit missing where the game, like basically I've put him to the right and he wants to be the centre defensive mid or something. Or
there is actually because I always forget that this menu exists, and there is a way that you can see like their side preferences and partner preferences.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, I want to play on the right, but only in a back three and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The game does not do a very good job at showing that.
I look at that for centre-backs. I always have... the only two I check are the centre-backs, but the centre-backs, I make sure the left centre-back is either no preference or left-footed or wants to play on the left, and the right centre-back wants to play on the right. But often they tell you how they want to play in a back three. I'm like, when have you ever played a back three in your life?
Exactly.
We never played a back three.
When have we played a back three?
4-4-2. Yeah.
You've been here since you were 16. What are you talking about?
We just do 4-4-2, lump it up top. Stop saying you want to play a libero in the centre.
We lump it up to our wide target men.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, right. Let's move on to another suggestion. Okay, Daniel K says, I'd love to have a lot more focus on relationships and interactions with my staff. There is more to the question, but I don't. What's your initial thoughts?
I guess it depends on, because the moment I hear more interactions, my brain immediately goes, please, God, no. But I think I understand that this is like a different area of the game that perhaps isn't as uncovered, and perhaps we could have interaction with the staff that isn't just meetings. Yes.
It's about how those interactions happen, I suppose. If they're repetitive and unfulfilling and don't lead to anything, and if they take too long, I think that's a problem with a lot of the meetings. They take too long. Yeah. I'm like, how many screens have I got to click through to get through this recruitment meeting? And I have to accept or confirm all of them. I'm like, I don't care that you've scouted Lionel Messi while I'm Scunthorpe manager. Like, just stop messing around. Yeah, that's it. The game stopped doing. Actually, I think they fixed that. But I remember the game always used to recommend. Like, always used to be a scout who'd come back to me and say, "Have you seen Lionel Messi?" No, never heard of the guy. I mean, could you imagine if your scout did that in real life? Just showed up with a bunch of reports. He's like, yeah, I've got reports on Ronaldo, Messi, Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah. Maybe you should sign some of these guys. They might really fill the holes in the team, improve the team.
And you're like, where did you get those? And he's like, no, on my TikTok algorithm. Look, boss, look at the skills. Look at the Evanescence song playing in the background.
Highlights reel. YouTube highlights reel. I mean, there's some players I feel like you don't need the scout report for at all. Well, maybe or the scout report should be telling you things that, I guess they do if you actually look at them. They tell you, oh, this player breaks his leg once a season. Don't sign Reece James.
One's the T1000, but in reverse.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I think interacting with staff more, it's got to be the right interactions, right? Okay, I'll finish off the question because it might give a little more insight. So it's weird to have to answer dozens of media questions at press conferences, talk to players about form and discipline, have conversations and negotiations with agents, but I can't actually converse with my co-workers, the men and women I employ and work with every day. All I get is stacks of reports, which I think implies what we were just saying.
That actually adds a lot of additional context that I think is really important, because you're right. You do end up having a lot of tedious stuff with, especially the media in the game, because it is, press the second one from the left, click all that, good to go. Player interactions, it's usually a bit of a minefield where you end up upsetting the entire team. But even though I think those things could do with a lot of work, it feels like if there's like a big pie chart of important interactions that a manager would have in real life, players would be a big chunk of that. The media would be relatively small chunk, really, when you think they're actually probably just doing press conferences on the Friday before match day. But then the other rest of that would be interactions with your staff. And I think that's probably an area of the game that's been a bit unexplored. And I hate to go off on a tangent, but something you said a minute ago actually did just spark an interesting thing that I hadn't even thought about, which is that you were talking about how you wouldn't need to scout someone like Lionel Messi, and you're right. But I do wonder if perhaps there's an element of the reports in game that that we don't explore properly, or if it doesn't exist. It'd be nice to know more about the players' personalities beyond like a one-word answer. Whether those players are going to fit in with club culture, things that I think would genuinely be things that teams do look at when it comes to recruitment of players. Things like whether they've got anyone that knows that player, whether they've had players that have played with them in the past, whether they would actually fit in at the team. Because it feels like the game does a kind of almost shadow version of that, where it kind of will throw them into the team, and then you get the problems that would have come with that, but you don't ever get the opportunity to preempt those issues and not sign them outside of things like the player having maybe bad adaptability and a bad personality. It feels like that area of the game maybe could be fleshed out, like a little bit more pros and cons perhaps that are less tied to hidden attributes, or maybe some new attributes in there that are just gives you a bit more context to the player's style as a human, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe are they okay with rainy weather? Okay, don't move.
Can they do it on a windy night in Stoke?
Yeah, don't move to. Well, I was looking at the rainy thing the other day because when we talk about that Manchester City shirt on last week's Patreon, the awful one.
Oh yeah,
that's inspired by the rain. Manchester's not even like in the top 20 of most rainiest places in the UK. It's like one of the least rainy places, like weirdly one of the least rainy places in the UK. I think Scunthorpe is on there, but which is kind of close to Manchester, or is Manchester Greater Manchester, I suppose.
Scunthorpe's not close to Manchester, is it?
Was it Scunthorpe? I think it was Scunthorpe.
I'm pretty certain Scunthorpe's not anywhere near Manchester.
Oh, maybe it wasn't Scunthorpe.
I'd be willing to bet Scunthorpe's like 150 to 200 miles from Manchester.
No, it wasn't. No, Scunthorpe's over the other side. Who am I thinking of? Stockport.
Oh, yes. Stockport. Yeah, that is close to Manchester, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Apologies, Scunthorpians and Stockportians. I don't know what they're called.
I like Stockportonians. It's great.
Stockport was like one of the rainy. Yeah, Stockport is sort of Greater Manchester. I don't know if it is. Don't come at me if it's not and you're from Stockport and you like your own identity. So yeah, it's not even in the most rain. But yeah, does a player like rain? Does a player like I think there. I believe you'll know this because you and Adrian will work this out. There is an attractiveness rating to cities in the game, isn't there?
Yes. I don't know the specifics of how it works and what the scale is, but in the same way that countries have like the developed status, be it like first world, developing nation, and third world, I think they changed it actually to something more politically correct in the end, which makes sense. There's also attractiveness ratings for, I think it actually applies to cities and countries. So I think it's like certain cities have a higher attractiveness, which means that they're more in the same way that like I think even a smaller London club may have a bigger pull than a club in, say, the northeast that's a little bit smaller further down. So say Fulham, when they were in the Championship, probably still had a bigger pull than clubs that you'd think would be more reputable than them, just because the player would want to live in London and the transport links and they can fly home and see their family. I think sometimes people forget that, players are at the end of the day humans. And if you're going to sign Neymar, how else is he going to go home to his sister's birthday party every year,
That's why Newcastle have struggled to, like, everyone's going to Manchester or Arsenal or Chelsea instead of Newcastle or Liverpool because no one wants to go live in. I'm set in every city today. No one wants to go. Actually, I would quite like to live in Newcastle. Looks kind of fun. I've never been.
No, do like the accent too. They'll love it.
Well. We're getting in enough trouble with like nearly doing accents. What was it? Like, Korean last week or French last week.
And you trying to say Sochaux for like 4 minutes straight.
Yeah. Newcastle actually looks kind of fun compared to most UK cities, but I think when you compare it to Manchester, Liverpool, or London, it's probably like not as fun. I'm curious how the game handles that with places like, and I wonder if it does handle it, Saudi Arabia, because that's very much some players would be like absolutely fine with going there, and some players would definitely not go there. And you can't really put in like a moral, I don't want to say it's a moral standing or like some of it's religious, some players religiously would be fine with going and living in a Muslim country. And some players have other, not objections on religious grounds, but other objections to living in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I think that's sort of an area that I don't think they would be able to tap into as far as, because then they'd essentially be taking like a moral stance on it. And besides, most of the players live in Bahrain anyway, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They live in Qatar and Bahrain and UAE, I believe. It's crazy stuff. They're building whole cities and stuff there. Controversially, we're not sponsored by PIF, so we can say what we like so we can say what we like at the minute. They're building a big city called Neom. Have you heard of the city of Neom? It's like a straight line.
Is that the big straight one? Yeah.
Yeah. But
didn't they buy like a small team and then flood them with cash when they're in the second tier, and now they've been promoted to the top flight this season, if I recall, and they've got some like ridiculous players.
Yeah, they were like one of the So there were 4 top flight teams owned by PIF, but there's like 12 teams in total, or 8 teams in total, including Newcastle, I believe. So I think there's like 3 others in the country and then a couple outside the country. And I mean, the city itself, I don't think they play in the city because the city doesn't exist yet. They're too busy.
It's coming very soon. They're building it now.
Whoa, yeah. The problem is that there are people who already live there, who they are evicting with force, and I'll phrase it that way. And if people want to look that up themselves, they're more than welcome. But yeah, I think whether a player would go to Saudi Arabia or not would be an interesting, or other places like, I mean, obviously, I think you remember back in, I don't know, 2015, every player was going to China, right? Or like a lot of Brazilians were going to China. But you wouldn't really see an English player go to China. I don't know if any went to China, right?
No. I mean, there's probably like the odd one. My guess is there is already a YouTube comment right now. Someone's in the process of writing it. Well, actually, this Blackburn reserve player did actually sign for Shanghai Port. So, get your facts right.
Igalo went, but he's Nigerian, isn't he? Is he Nigerian English or is he Nigerian? I think he's Nigerian.
I think he's definitely Nigerian. You're right. There was a lot of Brazilians. So like Oscar went out there. There was a guy from Atletico. Was it Carrasco went out to China as well, and then he came back.
I think some of them Belgians went. Didn't Fellaini go? Fellaini went, didn't he?
That feels like a Fellaini thing to do, yeah.
I think that's where he went from Man United. And then, I mean, Turkey is the new destination for a lot of them to go. Although Turkey's kind of nice.
I feel like it's always been like that, and it kind of comes and goes. Like the Turkish clubs seem to go through these patches of having quite a lot of investment, and then they'll go for a bit of more of a sort of fallow patch. And then suddenly they're back again. It's great. It seems to be back in... Turkey's just one of those leagues that it just seems fun.
Yeah, I like Turkey. Well, if you played Turkish League on stream,
never done it before.
I've always been warned off it.
Only usually by Turkish fans, actually.
Well, all due respect to Turkish fans, they're very passionate.
Oh, 100%.
And if you choose the rival team, they're very passionate, and that's it, right? If you could choose a rival team of an English person, they'll just take the mick of it. But the Turkish fans get very passionate about it.
I think what you really need to do to manage in Turkey properly and get the most out of it would be to build a super team out of both Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. Merge them together. They'll love that.
Galabache. Yeah, that'll do.
Galabache.
Sounds like a designer fashion brand. Galabache. You could buy your Galabache handbag.
Got a whole cupboard full of them.
So yeah, Turkey's. I think at the minute, there's some of the signings they've been making at the minute. I'm going off topic again, but some of the signings they've been making at the minute in Turkey, and I look at some of the players going there, and I think, why would they go there? Not to disparage the Turkish league, I think it's a top 10 European league for sure.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's like
8,
7 or 8. Yeah, it's probably it's higher than Belgium. I think just about. It probably
might not be for much longer because of how well Club Brugge
below
and
Portugal or Netherlands. It's probably above Portugal or Netherlands at the minute. I don't know.
Maybe I don't know actually. For someone that looks at the coefficients so much when he plays FM, I actually can't think of the last time I've looked at the coefficients in real life. Basically, usually I just wait for that inevitable post every year that says, "Oh God, France are going to lose their spot again."
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it's all changing now, isn't it? They matter more because you can get extra spots, but
100%, yeah. Particularly the yearly one where you get that random extra Champions League place allocated. That's
2 spots, isn't it? I don't know who got them this year. I assume
England.
England normally gets one because the teams have been doing pretty well the last 5 years across. Yeah, it's based on how far they get in the tournament. And then
it sort of just adds up the yearly coefficient scores, and then the 2 nations with the highest yearly coefficients for that season get allocated 2 extra spots. There are some weird caveats that can mean that you don't actually get an extra team, but that team gets automatic group stage qualification. It happened to me in Malta, and I couldn't explain why it had happened, but apparently there is some insane in case of emergency break glass situation that means that too many teams would be in the wrong places and they can trigger that. So I don't think anyone's fallen into that yet, particularly with the way that England are. But Malta, watch out, because Hammer and Spartans just got into the Conference League group stage for the first time tonight.
What's the most you've seen in one group stage from one country?
I think the maximum you can have is 11. Oh, in a single group stage. I think the maximum you can have in a single group stage is 6. Or maybe 7, because you could have the 5
have 7
teams
for sure.
4 teams from the league, 1 team from the league with the extra spot, a sixth team if they'd won the Europa League and finished outside of the top six in the Premier League, just as an example, and a seventh team if they'd finished outside of the top six in this case and won the Champions League the previous season. So I think you could have 7 max there. I think the maximum you could have is technically 12, or it might be 11, but I've seen 10.
I've definitely seen 10, yeah. I was
England
running
always
like
do
a
that.
simulation. Yeah, if you run like 100 years into the future, the English teams always end up with like 7, 8, 9, 10 in Europe at one point.
And normally that would be a massive hampering for you if you were doing a building a nation like that. But with England, it's just a benefit because they've then got 10 teams to beat you up. It's like the bullies have got more friends.
Yeah, well, as long as those teams keep doing well, I suppose. If they
Exactly.
don't, but then they keep getting the money, and then they keep getting better, and suddenly Fulham's the best team in Europe.
I mean,
Yeah, you wish.
I wouldn't want to live in that
Just
scenario.
I thought you were a Fulham fan for a second. When was the last time Fulham were in Europe? It must be a few years ago now.
The last time we were in Europe was when we qualified for the Euro. I think it might have even still been the UEFA. No, it was the Europa League.
You got the
this
final,
thing they used
right?
to have. We got to the Europa League final, but then a couple of years later we got into it through. Do you remember the UEFA Fair Play League?
Yeah, fair play.
So we tried very much not to get into it because on the final day of the season we had the best record of the Premier League for bookings, and all of a sudden we got 7 bookings on the final day of the season, but it wasn't enough because I think it was Blackpool or something were also getting loads of bookings in the same game. So we ended up qualifying through that, but we had to go into the first round of qualifying. So our first round of games the next year was in June, and it was against this team from the Faroe Islands. And it wasn't televised in any way, so the club took their own cameras and they just broadcast it on the club website because there were no broadcast rights to it. It was brilliant.
Did they not want the position? Were they getting the cards on purpose, or?
I suspect it's just that they didn't want to have to play European football in June.
Yeah. Maybe the players. That's it.
Yeah.
They knew they didn't have any bonuses in their contracts, which famously bankrupted Portsmouth. The bonuses in the like, hey, you win a cup, we'll give you a big payout at Portsmouth. What happens? We reached the FA Cup final twice in 3 years. Great. That was not expected to happen. Like they all suddenly turn up on Cup Day, absolutely like buzzing. Hey, cup bonus.
Gold Rolls Royces. You know, old Sully Montari, £20 million.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's only just retired, which is crazy. I say only just like 2 years ago, but
Still, like that's pretty good considering this was like a while ago now.
yeah. Matt, we have gone way off topic.
We
were talking about
that
talking to staff and interactions with staff. Do you want like water cooler chat, like weekly water cooler chat?
Oh yeah, the FM scuttlebutt.
Yeah, like just gossip while you're you just chat to your first team coach. I think that should be there. Like just, your first team coach comes to you and says, "Hey, Harry Kane doesn't look so happy this week. Maybe he's got some problems at home, or like maybe it doesn't even have to be like personal things. It could be
Totally sporting.
things.
It could just be he. Yeah, I see what you mean. So it would be because at the end of the day, if the social feed is going to be ripped out, which I'm glad because it doesn't really add anything, at least this would sort of take that place, but in a more meaningful way where you could actually glean genuinely useful information that has a game impact from that. So maybe even if it's just things like if you would, because with FM, one of the things we like about it, or I personally like about it, is you can do as little or as much as you want and get out what you put into a certain point. So maybe there'd be things in there that if you pick up on them, you could talk to the player and click certain options in your like interactions with that player that would then lead to better morale boosts. Whereas if you don't see it or ignore it, they're not going to be catastrophically bad or in any way, but you might just notice a slight performance decrease to if you hadn't, but not so much that it's going to ruin the experience, just little things that give you a bit of a reward for playing the game in that way, but doesn't punish you for not doing it.
Develop a relationship with the player, maybe.
Yeah, little tiny things that matter long term if you're doing a long term save.
Then the players back you a bit more in other conversations as well. If you develop a nice relationship, like if you care about your players and your staff, they also back you, and they don't turn on you.
It might make them want to sign like a more team friendly contract when it comes to a renewal. They might want an extra year there, perhaps, or they might take a slightly, and I mean slightly reduced wage. Just little things that you could earn through doing that and caring a little bit more, perhaps, or it would go into the sort of, I know some people don't like the role play element of things, but at the end of the day, the game is you role playing as a football manager. So perhaps you could go the opposite way. So, like in like games like Red Dead Redemption, whatever, where you could become the bad sheriff or whatever. And there are things you could do that you have negative interactions with your players. So you get the exact opposite of that. But you could ignore the system entirely and it would have like no real effect on you. You'd still have a neutral experience. But like I do wonder if there was a little bit more swings to that. Maybe that would be, I'm not saying that they should take their time putting this in, but it's just one of those kind of blue sky thinking it would be nice if, which is kind of the purpose of this discussion, isn't it?
Actually, I mean, something we said earlier got me thinking, and I'm surprised it's not already in the game. But what I'd quite like is, I don't think it's there, but when you get like maybe even the start of the season screen, or you go talk to a player or whatever, and you get like a little thing over the option that says, here's what you chose last time, here's how the player reacted. Right?
Like a fog of war, but for interactions, in the same way that attribute masking exists, perhaps. So, like, you can do interactions and you learn about the players through them, and it then enlightens you to more. You get more of an idea of what options might help you later by doing it, almost. Yeah,
and it's not like if it made him happy last time, it's not a guarantee it'll make him happy again. But it made him happy last time. You choose it again. Then when you go the third time, it says, "Hey, it worked one time. It didn't work the other time." And then you've got a bit more information. And you learn about the player and their personality and how they respond to stuff. And you sort of like, okay, this player doesn't like being told that he's not training well. He doesn't respond well to it.
No, exactly.
So stop doing it.
I wonder if... I love how we've managed to take in a question about staff interactions and somehow turn it back around to player interactions again. What we need to do is pivot it back round, and what do we actually think of the suggestion as the improved interactions with staff members? And I like the idea of the sort of the water cooler chat, because obviously with certain staff members, they have their purview and you have yours. It's a question of how you would interact with them and what meaningful information the game could convey that couldn't just be done in sort of the emails and screens. Like, say you're talking to your physio, what would that interaction potentially look like from an actual gameplay perspective? I'm not talking about clicking through options, but like, what would actually having a proper interaction screen with that physio entail that the game isn't already giving you now, I suppose, is what my question is to this.
Yeah, maybe it's got to be like, you could ask their advice, or you could which I guess you can do now. Does it give advice?
Kind of. You get like this player's looking jaded and can do with a rest. That sort of advice, I think, does come from your physios, and that's the only time I really see that, because you rarely ever get the stuff with recurring injuries, because they're quite... Considering how common recurring injuries are in real life, it feels like FM doesn't actually do a very good job at sort of modelling that, I find, or not acknowledging it when it does happen.
Actually, on that, I'd quite like... So when you get that and it says the physio says this player could do with a rest, I'd quite like good cop, bad cop, or like angel and devil on shoulder, whatever. The assistant manager coming up and going, no, we've got Arsenal this weekend. We've got to play him, right? Like,
give him the injection.
It'd be like, yeah, you can give him a rest, but he's going to miss this important game.
Well, I do like the fact that, I don't know how often you've gone into the interactions that pops up with a player when you actually interact with them based on that. Like, because I've got my fixture schedule in France is crazy, and I have two players that don't have the highest natural fitness, so I tend to find that this comes up on them especially. One of them, every time I try to rest them, he's like, yes, boss, no problem, I'll have a rest, no issue. The other guy's like, what? How dare you, kind of thing. The first time you can get away with it, but when you do it twice, he basically just goes, you're going to have to stop resting me, I don't want this, and they basically get like a negative morale hit from it. So that's another one of those things that perhaps you sort of learn about by doing. You do not try and rest this dude.
So it tells you, hey, this guy doesn't like being rested, and maybe it goes in his scout report, but it should show on that screen when you go to do that. Even if your assistant manager pops up and say, hey, maybe we don't like. That's what your assistant manager really should be there for in game, to be like, because in the game he goes, hey, we're doing too much of this. Why don't you do this? But he doesn't really say why. I'd like him to sort of give a bit more context as to why. Like, maybe we're conceding too many shots. Maybe we should try a lower block. Well, I don't actually understand how that's going to help me. So tell me why that's going to help me.
I see what you mean, and I really like the way that you mentioned that initially, just because of how in those interactions, I think it's a lot to expect the player to remember every single in and out about the individual players by themselves. Because in real life, obviously the manager would be expected to know a lot of this stuff, but he would have a team around him that is interacting with that at all times, his assistant manager and various other backroom staff. So I see what you mean about how it's a somewhat crude analogy, or like the paperclip from Microsoft Word that pops up and says, looks like you're writing an email. So when you go into these interactions with him, the assistant is there to sort of give some recommendations, but as you say, he never really explains why. So if when it said, hey, this is the one that I would recommend, and it then said under it, this player has reacted badly to you resting them before, they have a XY personality, maybe consider this instead. Then you're suddenly going, I understand why. And I think it would also be really helpful for newer players, because it would sort of act as an inline tutorial.
That's it, yeah.
That I think is really important.
Because that's where a lot of people get lost and like, I don't know what button I should be pushing. And, you know, when we go into every interaction now, we choose the leftmost option, or there's normally an option on the left side. You never choose an option on the right for anything.
Scary options.
I found one good one that works for some. What was it?
There is the team leader one, which is great.
There's one when someone is annoyed about something and they want to leave, and you say, you've got lots of friends here, why do you want to leave?
Yeah, you've got to be careful with those.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, that one, but that one works.
There's like a whole flow chart that I have that I work through when a player's trying to leave, of like the order in which I go through things. It's mostly just from pattern recognition, so you could argue that I'm sort of like gaming the system a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think I've just learned what works with certain things. So it's like, if you've got a player that you're happy to annoy at the start of every summer, but then fix them really, really quickly, you can, and if they're a team leader, you can then, when a player comes in and wants to leave, say, but this guy was fine to stay, and then like if they like that guy even a little bit, about 8 times out of 10 they're willing to stay, and then you can hit them with the you're an influential player or the tight-knit social group. I find that those ones seem to be the best for that kind of thing for the most part, and I just don't touch anything over on the other side of it, because that's just like appeasement, and that never works.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I never press anything that's got a promise.
Oh God, no.
I used to, but then you're setting your. There's a problem for future you. Then you're like, problem for present me, problem for future me.
If you're doing a 2-season save, you're fine.
Yeah. Sometimes actually, I think there was, whenever I know I'm like, this is the last season of the save. Yeah, sure, you can have like a massive contract this season. Why not? I'm not managing next year.
8 billion a week. How's that sound?
Yep, you just got to start it next season when I'm not going to be here. The game's not going to run. Fictional use ceases to exist. You're like getting Thanos out of existence.
It's like you're that prophet that knows the world is ending, but no one else does.
Yeah. All right, we've got through 2 suggestions and we've got about 30, so I mean, maybe we could fill a few weeks of this.
Let's try and quickfire them.
Okay. All right, a quick one then. So where is it? Lower league stadiums. Going to lower divisions around the world, a stadium that looks more like a park would be much more immersive. Makes park to prem idea makes sense visually. Stadiums need work. A stadium in the 2nd division of Mozambique shouldn't look like an EFL stadium. Lighting, stand colouring, design, and grass. Now, I want to say that they don't look the same.
I think that perhaps they were being somewhat hyperbolic, but I think that it's too similar looking in general. I think hopefully
like
with Unity
models,
they'll have a chance to make them
models?
more varied. Yeah, the building models are at least similar enough to the point. I mean, it's not one of those things that you care too much about, but it would be nice just to see the stadiums look a little bit more different, especially top league versus lower league. It feels like once you drop to the National League, everything below that looks basically the same, when the difference between, say, Torquay United and Ely City is vast in terms of their facilities, whereas the game would just consider them to have the same amount of burger vans and the exact same amount of fire engines.
I mean, they just have like a standing area at the side. Like, I mean, we were literally at Slough's ground 2 weeks ago. And they've got 3 standing stands and 1 seated, like, stanchion.
And a very nice one it was.
I'll call it stanchion stand. Which was like, it's nice, the seated one. Which probably had like, I don't know how many seats that seated one had. Maybe 300 seats.
It felt like a lot.
Yeah. So actually, what was the attendance? It was like 600, 700, wasn't it?
It was pretty big. Like, it was a decent crowd. I don't know if that's what their normal numbers are like, but it was pretty sizable for the 6th tier.
Yeah. What are they in? National League South?
National League South, yeah.
So I don't know. And I've been to quite a few non-league stadiums. I don't feel like, actually, to be fair, Slough's is probably the exception. I haven't seen many that have, although they're normally a step above a lot of the ones I've seen. So I've been to Leamington. Leamington just has like, I think 2 sides. One side of Leamington doesn't even have a stand. Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you play there?
We played in the same game.
That's where you had the charity game.
Yes.
I went. So that's where my friend Jack used to work, who we've had on the show before he went to Coventry and Lincoln and Leicester. So when he was at Leamington, I'd go watch the games there. Yeah, they've just got like a couple of standing areas that are like, a couple of standard. I don't think there is some seated ones, but they're small seated sheds, aren't they?
Yeah,
as opposed to like a big stand like at Slough. So I suppose there is some difference, and those are roughly the same level.
I think it would just need more granularity, some more models for it. And I don't think it would be... I think it's just that what we have now is so sparse that it's almost impossible not to see the same things. Whereas I think hopefully Unity will open up more room for that. And potentially the modding side of things through Unity could actually do a lot. Like. I'm really excited to see if anyone can mod actual, like, authentic looking grounds into the new game. For all we know, they may have them in it, but I really don't think they will, just because of the way that licensing works with stadiums. So I suspect that's unlikely, but that doesn't stop someone from modding them in if perhaps that's possible. And that would be an amazing thing that we've never seen before in the FM community. And how cool would that be?
I think the match lab people who do one of the match engine mods, I'm not too keen on the match engine mod, but I'm pretty sure they're working on a stadium project to change the stadiums in the game to make them all power to them to do it, but it's like, to me that seems like a gargantuan task. That's probably why Sports Interactive don't do it, because they'd have to go, well, actually there is also a legal reason, because you can't just the rights to stadiums are not with the clubs often, they're with the architects. Like, buildings are weird in that you can't, like, taking pictures of buildings, for example, or modeling things on buildings, you have to get the permission of the architect and not the owner of the building. It's very weird. So, like, probably even your house, you don't own the rights to the shape of your house. Someone else.
I don't even own the house. So.
Oh, well, okay. I mean, the bank probably still owns 99% of mine.
My house is owned by a Q80 fashion company.
Oh, okay. So, okay. At least it's not a Saudi fashion company after it. They might be raising your rent after what I said earlier.
Yeah, I'd never be able to live here otherwise. They'd kick me out.
Yeah. They watch the pod. Sorry, your rent's going up 100% this week. So, I think it's like minimum. Like, I think the graphics engine. I think if the graphics engine looks nicer, I think it'd be nice.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when people are saying park to Prem, like, by the time you're in the Prem, you've had about 5 stadium upgrades anyway. You know, you've probably got a new stadium, which this happens to me every time I do a save like that, by the way. They're like, we're building a new, you get to League One, we're building a new stadium, a 3,000-seater stadium. I'm like, no, please don't, because like, by the time you finish building it, I'm planning on being in the Premier League. I'm in the Premier League. Oh, our stadium's not big enough. We can't use it. We've got to build a new one. We've got to go somewhere else to. Like, I literally had it in Havant or Waterlooville. I played at a stadium for one game, and then we got told we had to move. They opened the stadium. Yeah. They opened the stadium and then it was not big enough. And I was like, great, somehow that's fantastic.
Less efficient than those ones they build solely for national team tournaments.
Yeah.
But this one's
so they did keep the stadium, but they had to upgrade all 4 stands of it. And I was like, well, and
therein lies the other issue, because as you say, it's the architect's permission a lot of the time. But that also means that when stadiums are increased in their capacity and certain stands are built, you often find that the licensing agreements are with different people for each stand and things to the point where it would be an absolutely Byzantine sort of endeavor to try and actually license anything like that. But someone who's modding in Unity doesn't need to worry about things like that, because it's just the thing you put in there. And I think it's one of those things that I don't think we're going to see. We will see some variety surely out of the new game, because it will have to look better. But I suspect that any kind of real development in that is most likely going to come from the community, like a lot of the good things in the game do. So that would be really cool. But I'd like to see it, but I think it's one of those things that it's unlikely that we're going to see immediately without being community driven.
I wonder whether the Premier League, like the Premier League license, for example, if you can get that with those licenses, because I imagine one of the things that's happened down the line in the past with EA and everything is that it's all been packaged together, and those architects have signed away their rights for the buildings to be used in media and video games, and all
like a sort of collective bargaining agreement where they have grouped together as the sort of the rights holders as like a collective chunk. That way they can request perhaps even more money, but then they also have like a united front as far as their actual negotiating position. Because otherwise, because do you remember back in the day when FIFA they'd have like a few stadiums, but then one season they went, right, no, we've got every single Premier League ground that is currently in the Premier League this season. So something must have changed for that to happen. Now, maybe it was the technology of creating the grounds, but often these things are held up more by legal stuff, aren't they?
It's nice because we get Fratton Park in FIFA, which is good. It's one of the ones
which was in there for the longest time, even though we weren't in the Premier League. It was great.
So one of the weirdest things about FIFA was I always wanted to play as Portsmouth, but we were always a championship team, and they didn't used to have championship teams in FIFA. And then the year that they added championship teams, we got promoted to the Premier League anyway. So I was like, oh, never mind. We got a Premier League now. But it's quite useful now because I can go back and we went down to League Two and they were in the game then. All right, so stadiums, yeah, it'd be nice to see. I don't think it's not high priority for me. I'd rather the game looks better graphically. Like if a stadium looks roughly like what it should, you're not really looking at the outside of the stadium too much anyway.
Oh, 100%, not from the outside. It's more the sort of internal immersive atmosphere, maybe how the crowd looks and the way they interact, banners and scarves and tifos and stuff. That, if anything, makes you more feel immersed in the game than what the car park looks like, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the game looks better, you might use a closer camera anyway. You might see less of the stadium. I don't know. All right, let's go for another question then. That's from Tony. Where's Tony asking questions? He knows he could just come on the show and ask them. Let's see. Okay, Metal Muse says, absolutely minor thing, but I'd like scout reports to not disappear if one of my scouts gets poached. It's not realistic as if the scout leaves the report would still be on file. I lost 4 scouts this summer. It's October. I'm still re-scouting players from my shortlist of new players. I didn't know this happened.
Oh, it does. Especially if you do team reports, and I obviously do my whole scouting report through team reports. I had a scout retire, and I lost 600 individually requested team reports.
Off with them all.
Yep, he basically takes his entire filing cabinet, shoves it in the back of his Volvo, and just drives off into the sunset. It's the worst thing in the world. There are certain scenarios where they get reallocated, but as you say, it seems like if you employ a scout and that person is scouting on your behalf, you're essentially the owner of their work products, right? So those scout reports, they're not an independent contractor. They wouldn't just be able to go, I'm off now, boss, taking my briefcase with me. No, we keep those, buddy. And the work that you've got scheduled for the future, you just pass that on to someone else on the team. It is crazy that isn't a thing. So yes, I 100% agree. Yeah. No notes, perfect.
There's actually very specific legal things about this. In fact, there's even like all kinds of non-compete clauses and stuff. Like, I mean, I know for my own job, I just work in a university, but if I went to another university, I can't just like delete all my lectures, like, and just I can take my lectures. I can take my lectures with me. Like I can download a copy and take them with me. I'm allowed, which is a lot of companies you wouldn't even be allowed to do that. I'm pretty sure I can. No one's told. I've not left, so I'm not gonna test it.
Science University. Like, if you are listening, he's not trying to do anything shady. I promise. He may sound like it, but he's not.
Well, there was a point where I was like, if they get rid of me, I'm just like, I'm taking everything. It is kind of annoying because one of the things that can happen is like they just, you put a lot of work into writing these things and someone else just takes it over and just delivers the class. And I guess, but with a scout report, it's, I guess that's sort of what would happen. And that's just work, isn't it? You're paid to do the work for the business.
Yeah. And if you've been allocated to say scout these 10 players, when you leave, they shouldn't just forget that those 10 players exist. That work should just be reallocated. Like, to me, this feels like the exact job that your head scout would be there to do. So even if you're the one in charge of assigning assignments or whatever, the head scout still exists. He doesn't suddenly just disappear. Like, he has got like a voice in his head, as my mum would say. He needs to speak up at that point and take those reports and say, right, I'm reallocating these to someone else because you're not the one that allocates. I mean, I suppose you can allocate reports to individual scouts, can't you? But like, who actually does that? Most of the time, we allocate reports into the pool and then the chief scout sends those out to everyone else. So to me, if a guy leaves, all those reports that he's been promised should just go back into the scouting pool.
Yeah. Maybe like half done reports and stuff you get. Spelling mistakes and stuff. I know.
Who's this Bessie fella?
Yeah. Or like if you find out he's just been using AI for 6 months. You get a second. That'd be great.
Like scout full of M dashes.
You have a scout and you just find out that he's just been ripping someone else off or like,
you sack him and hire that
something
guy.
Dodgy. That probably wouldn't be great, but
no, there'd be all sorts of reasons why that couldn't happen. But we're going to go off on another tangent if we talk about
this. 2NY Jameson FM must be someone in New York. Says, in addition to this, I'd also like to see what data the club have before I arrive. Surely, when I join a club, they don't burn all the files. Yeah, you have to start fresh, don't you? When you join, so like the reverse of the other thing. When you join a club, which you have no scout reports. Have you never looked at anyone? Like, what are you doing here, guys? I have to go do everything myself.
It's almost like the game clean slates it in a way, as if the entire backroom staff left with the previous manager, including the scouts, the physios, the dinner lady, the chauffeurs, all those people. It's like, no, some of them may have gone, but it's usually coaching staff. The scouts would still likely be here, and they'll still have knowledge of, footballers and stuff. It makes... Like, it'd be cool, actually, if when you joined a club, you got, like, a single scouting inbox report that is unique to this scenario that basically just says, look, I know that you're going to want different players because you're a new type of coach, but this is the reports we were working on under the old boss. Would you like to see what we worked on up to this point? And it just gives you some like up-to-date data on some players that might not fit your system, but did fit the other guys. And that way you get a little head start, and it also kind of keeps that realism in there too.
Yeah. Like, or it could be, these were the previous manager's targets. This is what we've been working to. Your director of football comes to you and says, hey, this is what we've been looking for. This is what we think we need at the club. You don't have to agree. Like, this is all advice, right?
Yeah.
We're at risk of just making more reports here, though, which we all just skip past. So that I think it's got to be how it presents itself. Yeah. Like it's an email or it's a screen somewhere, but it's not like an email with like 50 different screens. It's like, here. It
just highlights maybe a few, even if it just says like, hey, here's the 10 players that we had as priority targets when the previous guy left. Would you like to have a little look at them? And you get these like 10 fully complete scout reports that maybe fit the preferred formation of the previous boss or something.
Yeah.
Like one for each position.
Actually, do you know, I don't know I think maybe I've not done this, and I think you can do it. I didn't realize until recently you can filter the way in which scout reports are sent to you, I think.
Oh, yeah. There's advanced settings that I do all the time because there's some really annoying ones that they send you through. Things like there's a report that's on by default that is the one that allows the SCT symbol. When you get the scout report through your big scouting inbox and it just says SCT next to it, that is literally just them saying, I've started scouting this player. Cool. Yeah. You don't need to tell me that you've started doing your job. Let me know when you've done a little bit of the job and we have something to update me on. So there's a way you can turn that one specifically off in the scouting settings, but there's loads more. And that will cut down the reports by half.
Because I like when they, when the reports come through and I flick through them in my emails. But if I've sent out to scout 50 people, I suddenly get 50 emails back and I'm like, and I'm like, I don't really want to see the ones that they say are crap. I mean, just give me a summary.
Yeah.
You might be able to do this. That's what I'm saying. Just give me a summary and say like, hey, you got sent out to do these reports. I know I could go in the scouting center and do it, but you asked me to see these 50 reports. These ones we recommend, and just put like a little magnifying glass next to all of them so I can click on any of them. I mean, with that new tiles and card system, it'd be good, right? Hey, I want to go see show me that one that you've said is 5-star. Show me that one that you said is 3-star. Like, no, don't show me the guy you said isn't gonna play for Dog and Duck.
That is a really good point. Because it always feels weird to me that when you're doing scouting, your scouting is just kind of this nebulous blob of footballers. And I feel like it would be cool if, I know you can kind of do this with shortlists, but when you were requesting scout reports, say you went like these 10 guys, it'd be cool if you could select them. When you select the players and go get scout report, wouldn't it be sick if you had the option while doing that to essentially like create a scouting dossier that's basically like thing that allocates these 10 players a specific tag that's like, say they are all Italian wingbacks or something. And then when you scout them, it like tags them with something so that it's much easier to find them when you get the big reports through. So you can maybe click the filters and it will filter by the things that you've set. So these are my Italian wingback players. I know that
custom
the shortlist kind of does that, but it doesn't carry over as well into the actual inbox, I feel like. And that would be like a cool way of just coordinating the scouting reports, I guess, because you kind of would do that in real life. I would have thought it wouldn't just be dumped into one giant file. You'd presumably have different guys recommending different players from their own searches. So I don't know, maybe you can kind of do that by the scout that's done it, but I just think that might be a way of doing it, perhaps.
Well, custom tags would actually be really useful. So let's say you scout Brazil and you uncover a load of 16, 17-year-olds. You're like, well, I can't sign them. But this guy's good. I need to remember to come back to him in 2 years. I know you can set a reminder in notes, but maybe I just want like a tag that's like, these are 2024 intake players. Relook at these in 2 years, right? 2025 intake, like a tag that it could have a reminder on it. It doesn't have to. I don't know. Like there are different ways you could do it. Would it just like custom tags would be kind of useful?
Just something that's a bit more efficient than what you do now, where you have to put them on the shortlist, then you have to go create those notes. And anyone who's made a note on a player knows how tediously and annoying those things are to create. And I do it all the time just because I forget stuff constantly. But even if it just meant that when you set up a tag, there was the opportunity to put a timed thing straight on it. So you go create, you select them, create tag, name the tag, and there's like options on it. There's things like reminders that are just set to it straight away. Just little tiny options like that would be chef's kiss. I'd never even thought about this until this evening, but now I realise how much I would really like that as a feature.
It's like I want the timer that tells me when it's 1 month before contracts expire.
Yeah.
Because I want to go look at those players and I want to be straight onto them and say, do you want to come join me? Free transfer. Although I probably exploit that too much already. But, that's... that's such a good way of making money. Like, I just sign every free transfer who's good, and then screw it if they're going to play or not, because they'll get sold in January if they don't, and I'll make a profit on them.
I can usually sometimes I've managed to sell them the same season I've bought them here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In the summer that I've signed them. Some leagues you could get away with doing that, and it doesn't like violate that weird too many clubs thing. So just bring them in. Sometimes you can sell them straight away if you just set them for surplus to requirements. But I used to do this in Malta all the time. I'd sell just anyone with high rep, bring them in, fling them off and sometimes you'd use them for a bit, but it's just such a great way of making money. Almost makes me think that those sort of things should be patched out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you loan them out with an optional fee.
Yeah.
For the first season. And then, so the other team pays their wages. So basically all you've paid is their signing on fee. So the other team pays their wages and they've got an optional fee. And then the second season, you change that to a mandatory fee if they don't sell, if that optional fee is not exercised, or you just sell them. But you can always make money from it. Like,
sometimes
rarely
clubs are
do
so
you lose.
weird about that.
Well, I think rarely do you lose. I've never actually looked into the maths of how much I'm spending on wages and signing on fees and stuff. But normally, like, that would be like 2 or 3 million, and I can sell most of these players for like 15, 20.
When they've got like decent rep, you can usually do that. I mean, sometimes AI club negotiate. That's weirdly a sort of suggestion of my own, especially when it comes to loan negotiations. AI teams are just really weird about it. Like, they will demand your players for basically free on loan without paying much of their wages. Yet when you try to offer one of their players for a loan, when they have specifically listed them for loan, they'll be like, yes, I would like 100% of their wages, £800,000 a month, and your firstborn. And it's like, and then you try to negotiate with it, and they're like, how dare you come into my house and try to negotiate with me about this silly, ridiculous thing. And it would be so lovely if that was just worked on a little bit more. Like today, I tried to loan a player from Liverpool that they had listed for loan, and they tried to put a clause in that would meant that I would pay them £95 million if we won the Coupe de France. I don't have £95 million, but they wouldn't let me proceed unless I put this damn clause in. But if you do that, obviously I'm not going to win the Coupe de France, but if you have that clause in there, it counts as a mandatory option. So I had to negotiate with the player. He wouldn't sign for me and the deal fell through.
Oh, yeah. I think then also you wouldn't be able to sign him. Like, you have to have that money in your transfer budget, don't you?
Yeah, I don't think it would have gone through anyway. In the end, I managed to get him on the last day of the window by promising an optional fee of 107 million.
Yeah, so an optional one, I think you can get away with, but anything that's like,
you don't have to negotiate with the player
anything that
up front
has a
on those.
potentiality of being triggered is annoying, because it's like, that's going to get taken out of your budget.
Oh, exactly. That's why you always run the risk with things like wage cap clauses, which I love them because it means I can get longer deals on players. But for every 10 of them that I get away with, there's always that one dude who discovers like an aunt from St Kitts and Nevis and suddenly declares for them, congratulations, you're now paying him £70,000 a week in League One.
Yeah. All right, Matt. We've barely got through any of these, which is good, actually, because it means we've got more. Like, if people have enjoyed this and people have more suggestions, put them in the comments. I know we've had comments on previous videos, but actually, if we have them collated in one or two places, it's much easier for us to go through them. So if you have more suggestions, we're getting into a point of the season where we're sort of wrapping up our saves and, the new game is potentially coming. We might have news. We might not have news. Someone messaged me today thinking there was going to be news today. There was no news today. So we're sort of like, I don't want to say we're winging each week, but it's that weird point where we've had this game now for 2 years. We know everything about 24. There's a lot of excitement about, I nearly said 25, 26. And like, it's nice to speculate before we know too much, but also it's nice to like think about, okay, what would we like in the game? So yeah, suggestions down in the comments would be good. Should we do one more, Matt?
Go on then, choose one, and then we'll maybe save some for the Patreon.
That's it. Yeah, we could do some on Patreon as well, or we could save some for Tony and Aaron as well, because I'm sure they have strong thoughts.
Tony clearly has strong thoughts.
Yeah, Mr. 2NY Jameson.
You're not fooling anybody.
Okay, Orange and Blue Stew. I'd love the game to give the opportunity to players under 18 or reserve manager at a big club and starting your career as a promising coach before starting your managerial career in lower leagues. What do you think?
I honestly don't see why that's not a thing. You can manage B teams, you can manage like under 23 teams at B teams at Olympic level. It seems odd that isn't a thing you can,
can't you?
do. Yeah, you can do youth national teams, I believe, or certainly the B teams and under 23 teams.
You can do the under 21s and under 18s.
It does seem like an odd oversight. And since the whole, the usual response whenever you say, but I wish I could do these things is, well, this is football manager, not physio manager or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're the under 18 coach, you are still a football manager. And I don't think it's that different to managing a B team, really. In fact, arguably, in some leagues, it's basically the same thing. You are just
the
managing
whole B team
a team.
Thing's weird.
Yeah, because you could have your players stolen from up to the big team, and the club. You would not be in charge of signings, obviously, but you don't have to be in charge of that at the main team anyway. So I honestly don't see because it would just open up a lot more avenues without really having to change anything about the game.
Yeah, what I did. What did I do? Sporting Lisbon B. I can't remember what they're called now. I think it was Sporting Lisbon.
I think it's just Sporting Lisbon, Sporting B.
Yeah, I think it is. But I think they might have 2 or 3 teams.
Oh, anyway, most of them do.
I did my Guinea-Bissau. I did a Guinea-Bissau save, trying to improve Guinea-Bissau, and I chose. I only wanted to play as a club team at the same time, so I chose Sporting B because they have links with Guinea-Bissau, and they had a couple of Guinea-Bissau players. I think at Sporting. Is Roger Fernandez there? I think he is. He's at one. All 3 of the big Portuguese, or sorry, 3 of the big Portuguese teams have links with Guinea-Bissau. I don't know if Porto does, but Lisbon, Sporting Lisbon. Or Sporting, they're not called Sporting Lisbon, are they? Sporting and Benfica and one of the others, maybe Braga, have like links with Guinea-Bissau. Like they have like feeder clubs in these countries as well.
I think someone like Portimonense might actually have a lot of links, or is it? There's a couple of them like Vitória de Guimarães and teams. I find that I often see a lot of Guinea-Bissau players at clubs that aren't in like the big 3 kind of category. They're in that like sort of second set of teams, like Vitória de Guimarães or Portimonense or those sort of. There's another one who's Passos de Ferreira and teams like that.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if you look at like if you type in Sporting, I think even if you type Sporting Lisbon or Sporting, or if you type in Benfica at the top, the bar at the top, when you've got like loads of leagues loaded, I don't even think you need the leagues loaded, but it will give you about 30 teams.
Oh yeah.
It's like there used to be that team called Ajax in South Africa, right? It's like
yes, they were Cape Town Ajax, but then they became Cape Town Spurs, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is ironic.
So Sporting have like one in, there's one in Guinea-Bissau, and then there's one in Senegal, and then there's one in like Jamaica, and it's
a lot of the Lusophone nations have them.
Yeah. Lusophone, is that what Portuguese-speaking countries are?
I believe that is the name for the Portuguese-speaking, like former colonial nations. Basically, I believe it's Lusophone. Comments correct me as always.
I know. Jamaica is not one of those.
Jamaica very much not.
It's because I just mentioned Jamaica. There is a Caribbean island that is, so I don't remember which one it is. Curacao is Dutch.
Yeah, Curacao and all those ones are Dutch. I can't remember. There's even a Swedish former colony in the Caribbean, which is crazy.
Yes. I think it's just the city, but I don't remember which one it is.
It could be, yeah.
The idea that you could play as an under 18 or under 21 manager, yeah, why not? Especially as they're adding women's football. Not to say that, like, I think it sort of matches up kind of well, right? Like you can... You sort of move between different managerial roles and develop a career. It would almost be like a new journeyman.
Yeah, it's not like you're asking to be the assistant manager. It makes I can understand the reticence of it being an option to be the assistant manager, because at that point you're not actually really doing anything that hands-on or direct. But someone who is the under-18s manager is still the manager of the under-18s team. He's still in charge of... I guess the only thing that maybe you could argue is that most of the time I suspect that under-18 teams, most of these squads have got these like tactical philosophies that are like top-down. So you'd be expected to basically play the same tactic as the first team squad, so you'd have limited control over what you can actually do. So I wonder if
just put that into the job requirements. It's part of the challenge, right?
Yes.
the preferences. We prefer you play a 4-2-3-1. Is there already there? It does prefer attacking football and possession football and stuff. I don't think there's formation preferences.
They're quite vague.
Are there?
I think it's the same way they're like, oh, we want you to play for set pieces, or rather, we want you to be a good team from set pieces. But if you score loads of goals from corners, they don't care unless you've got the play for set pieces thing ticked. I remember Kev United City FM had a huge issue with this on his stream save a couple of years ago, where he couldn't get a single job on a journeyman save because he hadn't got that ticked in his tactic, and every club wanted him to play for set pieces. Crazy.
Actually, I think when I was at Sporting, there was a requirement to do with the first team when I was at Sporting B. It might be just like develop players for the first team. I think that was actually more important than me doing well in the league.
That would make sense, because after all, that is what the B team is there for. It can't get promoted out of, probably, I think in Portugal, it probably can't get, I think they can be in the second tier in Portugal, can't they?
Yeah,
but they
I was in the
higher
second tier and I got relegated, but I got a high rating because I developed lots of players really well.
Yeah, because that is the whole purpose of the B team, really, is to develop young players. It's the same with like Barcelona Athletic and Castilla. Those teams really only exist as a sort of feeder to allow those young players to play at a decent level. Where, well, not like I'd want to see that brought into English football, but you can see why, because it's been so entrenched in Spanish football. I don't know what the sentiment is like towards those teams from Spanish football fans, but I can't imagine it's amazing. But it's been there for such a long time. Maybe it's just sort of seen as a thing that happens now.
It's kind of hard to not develop the players if you're playing them.
Yeah.
So I guess
you're not the one signing them, so it's not like you can sign loads of players to take their places, because if you're the B team manager, presumably you can't do any signings. That gets allocated to you by the big side.
Yeah. I think I ended up resigning because I was like, you can't really go wrong in this save. You just, you get relegated and then you win the division below. Obviously, you go back up, but they're not too worried about your league result. They just want you to make players for the first team. And even then, it doesn't matter too much. Because a team like, well, actually, Sporting probably do bed in quite a lot of youth players, but I imagine they also just buy the players they want at their level.
I suppose it's probably quite a lot of both. They probably bring players through and like bringing players in young from abroad that then end up like cutting their teeth in the B teams and the C teams to bring their way through the development. It probably helps with their development quite a lot. I mean, these teams in Portugal recently, not recently, over about the last 15, 20 years, have been absolute powerhouses of like net profit, haven't they?
Yeah. Do you know, I think you could even do something interesting with it. Like, because obviously, if you're in charge of Manchester United Academy, right? Let's say you're the under-18 Manchester United coach, which actually isn't in charge of the academy, but you're the manager for the under-18s. They would be coach or manager? Manager.
I think in the game, it's definitely manager.
Like, maybe you get sent reports on potential players from nearby, because there are those clubs that are like, there are like development clubs that we have in the UK. Like I think the class of '92 they played at one, didn't they? They were before they were at Manchester. There's another famous one that I'm pretty sure, like Frank Lampard,
Boys Club or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, like these boys clubs that are obviously only at youth level, and they all like. Is it Lampard played at one?
I guess a little bit like what Clairefontaine was in French football. It does.
Yeah, they do have them. They do have them in the lower league.
Definitely something. I mean, this was actually one of the things that I was going to say as a feature for me was that I would like to see more of a flushing out of the youth intake system, because it seems very strange that the first you would hear about a player is when they suddenly spawn on your desk at 16 years old. It's like, if you're the manager of a football club, you'd have knowledge of guys that are in like your youth teams. Like, you might not know much about their potential or anything like that, but you would be aware of their existence. So they maybe not player profiles that you can interact with, but just being able to see like a guy's name progressing through your underage youth squads to be the point where they then do come into your official youth squads would make more sense to me than just being thrown at you on like one date a year. I don't know how they'd be able to handle that, even if they only gave you like names and nationalities and ages, just something so that you could track their development a little bit without actually really knowing their potential. Because obviously the further away they are from actually being like an official player, the more vague it would in theory be, because there's so many different things that could happen. It would just be nice to have a little bit more knowledge of them before they just appear, I guess.
There's some weird stuff that happens with that. Do you ever get that email where it's like, hey, this 14-year-old, 15-year-old's been poached by Chelsea and we're going to get these payments. They always poach the worst. They always take the worst players as well. And you're like, sure, I'll take the money for him. He looks awful. Well, they don't actually have attributes, but they're like,
well, but they don't until they do. But this is the thing. People think that because it always says that the player is 15 there, but actuality they're not. So the game uses 15 as a designator there because I believe they're not allowed to show an age that's younger than that anymore. It used to be that you could have 14 in France and Germany, but I think they got rid of that. But that player, because if you think, if they're 15, that means they should be in the next youth intake or at the very worst, the one afterwards. I had one player poached when I was at Treaty United that didn't come through the youth intake at the team that was poaching him, which I think was Chelsea, till 6 years later. And I know that it was the right team because we got the little thing in our clauses thing that told us that it was that player because you get the 5% sell-on fee, which means that technically when he was poached by Chelsea, he was 12. And I think basically it's just that's the lowest the game can show it. So they can actually poach them younger than that, which means something in the background is actually cooking this sort of thing up a little bit.
Why doesn't it just say youth player? It should just say youth player then. Why say the age at all?
I don't know. Frankly, I don't know.
Can you when it does that, can you click on the player? No, they're grayed out.
They don't have a profile yet until they actually spawn in as an official regen, and at that point they appear in your clauses.
But it does like put a bookmark in on that player that they will exist.
Yeah, it basically means that, as far as I know, as long as you keep the save going and that team is in a playable league, I think then that player will eventually spawn into a youth intake later down the line. Because I had this happen a lot, because Irish clubs are constantly getting their players nicked by the big English sides, apparently. I didn't realise this until I went there. But yeah, it's weird, and it means that clearly it knows something in the background. So it would be cool if you just knew, even if you could just look at like your under 13 squad, and it's just a list of names and nationalities and ages and not much more beyond that. But then each year you see which players are moving up and you go, okay, maybe this is a guy that we should look for. And then when they do come through your intake, you're like, that guy has good potential now. We can see that. And I've seen his trajectory through our youth academy without really knowing much about him, just so that you're not so surprised by it, I guess. But you still get the big surprise of youth intake day when you're actually revealing like things like potentials and options like that. But it just gives you a bit more of a lead up to it, I suppose. So the names at least are more familiar with you, I guess. Yeah,
you're like, you could I'm trying to think where the legal issue lies there. Because they're not real players,
they're all
so
regens.
It doesn't matter.
So that shouldn't have any issues.
True. Maybe. I don't know. It does start to get weird around that area. Like I always, so this is something I wanted to make a video for a long time about, like morals and Football Manager. And I never got around to it. And eventually, well, you know what happened in the league? Because one of the things I was going to base it on was like, hey, should you sign a player like, you know, who's done something bad or not? Like the game has no concept of what this player has done as good or bad. They don't know. The legal issue doesn't exist in the game unless they get like a drug suspension like Mudryk, right? So the AI is perfectly willing to sign these players and use them against you, whereas you morally correct and upstanding are not going to sign X or Y player. And then I started thinking, well, okay, what other ways do you like sort of acting morally in the game? And I asked people, I was like, I mean, is like usurping players from I don't know where, Kiribati, right, and bringing them to London at 16 or 18. I think they have to be 18 now, right? Like, is that morally correct? Like,
am I human trafficking?
Yeah,
at that point,
right.
Like, yeah. I mean, that's a common theme, especially when I'm doing loan farms and building a nation, and I've got 250 players out on loan. It's like, at what point is that incredibly shady? And obviously, in real life, if a football team did that, just think of the athletic long read that would be written about that. But I think we can kind of distance ourselves from it because it's a video game, right?
That's true. But so the youth intake one's interesting because, like, I was thinking about it and I was like, all you do on youth intake day, and a couple of days after, they're on trial for like 2 weeks, aren't they? And they're like, do you want to sign these ones, release all these ones? And it's like, if they've only been with you for 2 weeks, they're just some stars on a board, right? You don't really care. They don't look that great. Like, just release them. In real life, that is a youth player who has spent 10 to 15 years, probably at 10 years, training at the club, building up to being a professional footballer. And the day comes and they're released, and you know they've let their schools suffer, they've left their university or college prospects suffer because they've been focused on being a professional footballer. Cut. That's it. They never made it to professional football. Like, that's like such a major thing in a person's life. And there's so many stories out there about real football about it. There was a Manchester City, I think it was Manchester City player a few years ago who got cut because he got an injury. He ended up committing suicide, and it's like, it's really sad, you know, in the game, just a button, isn't it? Like,
I guess, I hadn't really thought about it like that. But I also feel like maybe there's a mechanic there that's perhaps a bit missing, because, you know, when you release those youth players, it seems like even if you're like an amazing team, say you're like one of the best teams in the league, you've got great youth recruitment, etc., those players are obviously not going to be good enough for you. but they're probably still going to be like capable League One players one day. It feels weird that a lot of them not as many of them get picked up by lower league clubs in your nation as would do in real life. Because if you think about the number of stories you hear about this guy that used to be at X club, but then he dropped down and then he came out the game. But it feels like in FM, it doesn't really replicate that mechanic as well as perhaps it does in real life. Like, it does happen, but it doesn't feel like it happens enough.
I feel like the 21-year-olds and stuff get that far.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, that list that you get about the clubs releasing players when they're like 21, that one works brilliantly. But it feels like the really young ones don't get like a second chance at a lower league side. And that'd be like maybe an option where if you're a League One side, you get like a list of players released from youth intakes at like 16, 15 from the big sides. And maybe it called like a second chance day or something, like the England trial day you get when you first get to a club, kind of like that, but like second chance youth intakes or something, where you can pick up some of those guys potentially that might look more favourable to you as Crew Alexandra, whereas they weren't when you're, say, Brentford, perhaps. Although Brentford's a terrible example because of the whole youth academy being gone, but like that kind of, you get what I mean, a Premier League side.
Yeah. Like I sort of, what I was thinking about it is when they have that kind of thing, because a lot of them, they have, programs that they go into now, like as a result, I think of this Man City player, but also some other things, like they get put into like job allocation programs and stuff like that to help them readjust to not becoming a professional footballer. And I'd kind of like, all it needs to be even is a line to say that that's what's going to happen, right?
Or just like maybe a list of jobs that the players maybe got. Also, why don't my semi-pro players have a second job? And why don't I know what it is?
Just to say, hey, these players are going to go into a reallocation program that the club is funding. Almost just like an acknowledgement that these were real kids who went through your academy and had prospective careers that they never fulfilled. It's almost like, in a way, I want it to humanize them in a way, right? Like I want it to because I feel like what we risk doing is breaking these real people. I mean, obviously the ones in the game are just new gens, but ultimately they're supposed to be replicating what's happening to real people, and we're just breaking them down to their core attributes as footballers and not as individual players. I don't know, maybe that's a bit deep for today.
No, I like this because I want to see Maggio leading the New Gen Union, where they rise up. New Gens demand rights.
Yeah, that's it. Well, they don't have rights because these are all kids. Then they're going to piss off the club that they actually they could potentially sign for, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's a somber note to finish on today. Should we cover a couple more on the Patreon?
I think that might be an excellent idea, since you've probably got a list of at least sort of probably about another 30 by now, I suspect, with people writing in the comments.
You had some as well. We've not even touched your list.
No, I had Twitch chat, so some of them are probably very, very silly indeed. But obviously, if people want to get over to the Patreon, they can obviously listen to the bonus episodes and all the other goodies over there. And obviously, they can find that on patreon.com/the FM Show Pod. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it. You smashed it.
Look at me go. And what's the email if they want to get in touch with us over there?
The fmshowpod@gmail.com.
Absolutely brilliant.
I had to check it was Gmail and not googlemail.com. I think both work. I think they have to be different. They are different, aren't they?
My personal email is actually still a Google Mail email account, which people go, are you sure about that? Every time I tell them.
Mine's a Google Mail. It takes so long to... Well, it's not my actual original one's a Hotmail one. It's like, I don't know. Hotmail sounds so weird now, doesn't it? Like, I think even at the time it sounded like slightly seedy Hotmail.
A little bit, yeah. But everyone had one. It was all MSN Messenger days.
Yeah, but you can set an alias where you have an Outlook. So I've got one that's called Outlook.com now as well. Just because I have to apply for jobs and stuff and I don't want to have my Hotmail name. No, thankfully, it wasn't like Kitten Lover 99 or something, right?
I really wish it was now. What a fantastic note to end the episode on there. Yeah. So, obviously, it's been me, Second Yellow Card. You can find me on all the normal platforms, and you can find Sai, Kitten Lover, Maggio. Where can they find you, Sai?
All the same platforms. We're also the show's on TikTok. Come support us on TikTok and YouTube. And you can, or if you're listening audibly, if you're listening
orally
on whatever platform you're on, so you don't have to watch the episode, although you do get to see your reflection in the top of my head. So that's that's definitely how screens work. Thank you very much. I feel like I had something to add, but I forgot what it was after I made my joke.
No, that's fantastic. You can put it in the Patreon episode. So yes, thank you for joining us. You can also find Sai on MSN, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Oh, MSN.
Bye.